I'm going to invite us all now, Rob, on the heels of what you just spoke to us, to really receive that. And so for some of us, we get more in our heads, which there's nothing wrong with that, is there? But I'm going to encourage the environment for us to actually almost imbibe, like an elixir, what Rob spoke about, just with blessings. And so as we sit, you can breathe. I hope you're breathing. And to just reside right now in a place, as I said at the beginning of this service, it felt important to remember to ground and to ground yourself. In the spirit of blessing, we also ground ourselves. And why do you think we do this? I'll mention it. Because the revolution of love is a ministry and a movement that is very expansive, my friends. It is very expansive. And so it's irresponsible in a certain sense of the word to expand outwards without first reckoning and remembering the spirit of groundedness. And so in this groundedness, we remember that we are blessed. And yes, we do, in fact, come back to a perspective. We come back to a perspective. I would like to add that to a holy perspective. And in that place, we realize that we are calm and that there is a center within that speaks to us right now in the night. And so I would like everybody right now, all of us right now, to come back into this place of center. So if it means that you, if you are able to put those feet on the ground, that would be helpful for you, actually, if you are able, and to keep breathing in to the environment and to exhale out. And so we know that this happens a lot in spiritual circles. You hear these kinds of, again, these are sort of buzzword things or even buzzword practices, but I want us to hear this with fresh ears tonight. I want us to come back to the idea of grounding, of blessing, of being blessed in a way that is absolutely like as if we've never heard this before. Fresh ears, beginner's mind. Beginner's mind. And so as we take this very seriously and humorously, as Taylor X would probably want to add, as we add some levity into this, we remember where we've been residing in this vision statement series. And so it's the revolution of love vision statement that's been guiding us in these recent weeks. We've been going line for line by line, and we've had a certain halt, a certain pause around we practice transformative justice, because it's so, this is such a rich, meaningful sentence. We practice transformative justice, and it calls us to take a pause here, to not gloss over what do we mean? What do we mean by transformative justice? And we've asked those questions. I asked you this, can we even believe in transformative justice? Do we? Do we believe in transformative justice? And perhaps also how? How do we believe in it? How do we practice it? And so we've gone point for point, and let's do a little review now for those that may have not been here, and even just for us to get us in the mood. And so first off, we recognize that we are in the current system that is punitive. It is a criminal justice system. It is punishing. It includes retribution. And that is the current model. And we are taught that right off the bat as kids. When kids get separated, if they do something wrong in school or even in the home, but there is this push away and there is an isolation that can happen to this child. And this just continues on. This same idea of isolating the harm doer and putting them in a prison kind of situation. We see this continue on. Also, we see this in our mindset, don't we? Think about it like this, my friends. We see this in a vengeful mindset. You know, we're gosh, even the best of us, let's get real. There are certain things we hear about someone doing, you know, maybe it's the abuse of a child. Forgive the trigger here, perhaps, but the trigger warning, I should say, say an abuse or a killing of a child or a hate crime against the LGBTQ community. And in that moment where we think revolution of love, you know, we believe in this and we want to be revolutionary, we want to love everybody, we are met with that mindset perhaps within us of vengeance, like, no, throw the book at them or they deserve the death penalty. Like I said, even the best of us have come up against this. I'm going to bring up something that happened on Friday. Derek Chauvin's sentencing happened on Friday. Did anyone see the live feed of that? I was watching that actually with Bishop Nicholas Brown. And we know that he got 22.5 years. And even part of my body, it was almost like a bodily response, wanted to just go, throw the book at him and more. You know, just that vengeance for the evil and the cruelty that he inflicted. And then we go, we practice transformative justice. How do we come from this out of a criminal justice system, making a hard shift into the reality of a transformative justice system, which says, I believe people are worth more than their worst mistakes and therefore shouldn't be penned up. There is that, as Desmond Tutu in the quote that Jay read a few weeks ago, that there is always a possibility for said person to transform. How do we believe that? Can we believe that? Should we believe that? Should we hold space for the Derek Chauvins? Fill in the blank, it's beyond him. Should we hold space for people that have, what one could say, have fallen from grace, fallen from love, fallen from God, that I like to say that are so disconnected from their imago Dei, their humanity? What do we do there? How do we move forward? And can we believe in this beautiful idea of transformative justice, of decarceration, of ending the death penalty? You know, all of these really important things, the things that this ministry and movement actually resides upon. And actually, before the sentencing on Thursday night, I had a very intense phone call about all of these pieces of truth. And so the word accountability is one of the words tonight. How do we hold somebody accountable that is not showing any signs of remorse or regret or connection, who doesn't want to be held accountable, who's exhibiting some psychopathology or simply this disconnect already mentioned? What do we do then? I'd like us to not eschew the or throw away transformative justice. I'd like us to not even throw away that person that I mentioned, and I really don't want to say his name again. We can leave it over here. We can leave this person. We can leave all of those really challenging people and situations. We can just imagine us now, we are resting it over here on the mantle, if you will. And we can come back there at the end. So please stay focused. In my work as a nonviolent theorist, a strategist, a trainer, and then intersecting that into transformative justice, there has been a lot of focus over the years on doing inner work. And it's not to be self-focused, and it's not to be self-centered or absorbed in any way. It's to, in fact, get this, cultivate a spiritual container, a healthy, a strong spiritual container. And the reason why, my friends, we do spend time doing inner work on ourselves, and maybe you didn't realize that by coming to these services, let's name it right now and lift it up, that you are actually working on your spiritual container. What does that mean? That means that you are developing, maybe for some of you, depending on where you are at in that process, in that journey, you are developing more of a sense of self, developing more of a connection to yourself. We are fostering and nurturing a connection to one another that builds our spiritual container. We are fostering and nurturing a connection to a higher power, whether you call that God or golf, however you believe in a higher power. And so when we have a spiritual container that is powerful and that is not overflowing, there's things that this affords us. Let's talk about it. It affords us the ability to not be defended. Let's talk about white fragility. It affords us the ability to, instead of being fragile, white fragility, and that defendedness, for those of us that have that skin privilege, it allows us to be willing. See, it allows us to be open because we are connected to who we are. So when the shit comes down, pardon me, but when something comes up and challenges us, we don't have to run the other way. No, instead, there is that connection. I'm not a horrible human being. I have something I need to look at. And this person is telling me this. See, this is how we begin to practice the idea of accountability in the realm of transformative justice. And see, this kind of defendedness finds its way in many, many areas. So not isolated to skin privilege. It can happen in so many different ways. And it does. It does. So let's get a little deeper now. Let's go another level. So I actually think I'm going to open it up here. I'm going to open it up to you all. And again, just wanting to make sure I've been clear thus far, because there's a lot of pieces here. So we are talking about transformative justice, and we're talking about the piece within that is accountability. Accountability being the ability to acknowledge when we've harmed somebody and being able to sit with that so that we may transform it and not do it again. It's not as simple, I'm sorry. No, it's actually being able, it's like tikkun olam, to fix and to repair and to stop doing it. So do you see why it takes a tremendous amount of bravery and spiritual containment, or having a spiritual container that is sturdy? Because we're far more likely to be able to shift into those very, what seems like treacherous waters at times, when we have that. I'll say it like that. So I'd like you all, let's think about a time in your life where you may have harmed somebody. You hurt them. You did something that was might have been very hurtful. It might have been something, and they let you know. And it doesn't matter necessarily what tone they used. Let's shelve that. It doesn't matter if they said it perfectly to you or not. But I'd like you to think about where you went in your mind, in your heart, and in your body, and how it made you feel. How did it make you feel? And when you're ready, if those brave souls that want to speak to this, please feel free to come off mute. And this is honesty, so. Whoever would like to share.
This is current. And just today I was talking to someone and saying, because 7 years ago, my youngest son's mother-in-law took my grandson out of my life, and my youngest son was too weak to do anything, and it's happened again. I had him back for 6 years, and he's out of my life again. Only now he's old enough that it's hurting him. I am furious, and I run into people who know her, and normally I say nothing. And I really thought that the next time somebody said to me, "Oh, I know that family, the husband's so great," not that the wife isn't, and I was planning on saying, she's an F and B, because she, to me, that's how I felt. And I'm going to have to not do that. I can't do that. Even though that is exactly what she's acting like, I can't do it. And I realize it now, because I was going to do that next time, because that happens to me quite often, because people know her quite well. Her own minister's scared to death of her, wouldn't do a counseling with her and me back 7 years ago. I cannot respond by even calling her anything. I need to find a way to not hate her and not hate everything she stands for, Confederate flags and Bibles and guns going to church. And I just, it brings up, as you can tell, a lot of anger.
Yeah.
I have to work on that.
And there's ways to do that. That's along the same lines, Judy, and thank you for sharing honestly with us. And also it's interesting because one thing that could happen from this, and I won't go too far into this, is we never want to swallow that, we don't want to swallow it back in. I'll say it like that. So how do we metabolize anger? And that gets a little different right now, but thank you, Judy, for sharing, like I said, so openly and so honestly with us. Is there someone that might have an example around? Yes, Margaret, I see your hand up.
So when I was a teenager, well, from the time that I was a young child, I sent the message to people that I did not have time to hear them, that my story or my truth or my feelings were more important than anything that they could tell me. And when I turned 18, my dearest circle of friends gave me a present for my birthday. That was a plaque. And on one half of the plaque sat a picture of a gorilla that was very, into a pose of opposition and stubbornness. And on the other side of the plaque, it said, "There are two sides to every story, but I don't have time to listen to yours." And I took a pause and I did not say anything in that moment, but I sat back and I thought about how courageous my friends had to be in order to give me a gift that smacked me in the face and really forced me to look at myself, to look at my behavior, to understand what I was doing and how I was doing it, and then to change. And as I sat there, and of course, the room was silent, right? So, here's my 6 dearest friends sitting around me. They were silent. I was silent. And as I sat there, I looked up at each one of them. And in that moment, I just said, thank you. But that was not easy. And it was a transformative moment for me, because the courage of my friends to tell me about my behavior, knowing that they probably feared a fierce response from me towards them, was greater than my need to respond. And so I sat and I took that in, and I promised to make changes. And it was a transformative moment in my life.
Wow.
Yeah, that took a lot of courage on their part.
It did. And there's so many things to that, Margaret. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. The courage on their part, and also that the availability that was within you to not become defended, for the wall to go up, and to be in that place that can be just so frightening and scary and uncomfortable. So thank you. That's how it's done. This is how it works, everyone. That is a prime example of the continual growth and process of, again, moving into this place and this mindset that is transformative justice. It starts with these new ways of relating and of connecting. Well, I shouldn't say new ways, but for some of us, rewiring into different ways so that we may connect in a very spiritually holy, intimate way. And that's the wonder of this life that I believe we're missing so much of. I mean, this is at the community meeting. This came up over and over again. Everybody was talking about connection, connecting. We want to connect. So is there one more? Let's go. Is there one more person that would like to speak on this? Yes, I see Evie's hand. Yes, Evie.
Early in my attending role, I was experiencing what I will now call, the new words, Jewish fragility. It was during a time where anti-Semitic hate crimes were rising, and I was fearful, and I have ingrained in me the history of World War II, Germany. And you pointed out some things to me. They weren't easy to hear. And I was feeling defensive, but it percolated almost subconsciously. And I saw, I could see, I understood. I really don't want to get into too much detail, but I felt a little angry that I wasn't allowed to voice my connection to the BLM movement. It just seemed unfair. But like I said, I saw the difference. I understood. It took a little bit. It took openness. Brave on my part to come to me like you did, and it was brave on my part to be willing to hear. And the best part is that I got peace from my fears and my worries as a result. I'm not quite sure the dynamics of that, but I did. I feel less angry. I feel less fearful. I feel less constrained, straitjacketed. It was like, I thank you. And I think that kind of applies to what we're talking about here.
It really does, Evie. And I remember that. And I have to say, you really went there. Everybody has, from Judy to Margaret to you. You really went there by sharing that. And keeping it transparent, I remember my own concern and thinking and angling, because that's what a lot of what this work is. We know it's a lot of checking in, and where am I coming from? And is this my agenda? And what is connected to God? And is love at the center? Is God at the center? And all of these pieces. So there's that fear that I think part of accountability and part of this work of transformative justice on this level, which is the building blocks of everyday transformative justice, is laying this groundwork to do it on a larger scale. Is the fear is, at least one of them, is that we're going to be abandoned. We're going to be eschewed. We're going to be alone. We're going to be pushed aside. And that existential, I believe, like a crisis moment of feeling what we may have felt as very young people, for whatever the reason. We've all had that. It may be because of our identities, or it may be a traumatic experience that came through. But there is some place in all of us where we don't want to go back to that. We don't want to feel it anymore. Or maybe it's current and it's just constantly on the daily and so to take the risk, right? To take the risk and sticking with accountability in the way of what, say, like using Evie's example, to actually be open to hearing that. That takes courage, and it takes what I was calling earlier, this spiritual container. And within that spiritual container, my friends, it means that we are more likely, we are more inclined when we don't lose sight. Feel this, please. Yes. When we don't lose sight of one another, and we remember, oh, this person loves me. This person cares about me. They're not out to get me. That primal feeling of when we're being challenged, if we've done harm or whatever that might be. But instead, to be able to go, this person and I, we are connected. I can see that they are made in this imago Dei. They're not my enemy here. And so part of the spiritual container is to, yes, increase your resilience, increase your safety. And I want to say something and throw this in here, is to be wise about that. And let's explore that. Okay. What I mean by that is some people aren't safe. Now, in the case of Margaret, those friends, those were safe people. They weren't trying to get anything over on her. They weren't out to get her. They were actually out to get her in a way of bringing her closer, maybe to not just themselves, but to her as well. If I may say so, Margaret, if I may be so, bold here. It's these, yes, it's these noticings that are very important as you move forward, because what can happen is I think, as with most things, when we get very exuberant, say in the realm of transformative justice, and you're like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do this thing. Yeah, let's, we're going to change the world. We're going to bring this in, and okay, new ways, let's try it on. And inevitably something is probably going to happen where the formula doesn't work. There's the para technique that I taught you all that were here last summer. And I remember saying that this may not always work. So at Roll, we always amplify and we always lift up that the potential for change and the potential and the possibility for transformation is always there. Now, does that mean it's going to happen? We don't know. But we believe in it. And going into that piece around folks, please do not, don't do what I did. For many, many years, being a nonviolent person and doing this work. I thought that meant to take in, to internalize the toxicity that people that were not trustworthy, that were not actually like what Margaret and Evie were describing, that was not going on. No, this was, and those people, we know those people. We have felt those people in our lives where there is actually some other intent, some other intention. So I realize this is heavily nuanced right now tonight, because on one hand, we're saying, go for it and trust people and building the spiritual container. And I will tell you some tools next week. I know we keep building here, but that's just the way this has to go. And then on the other hand, it could feel like, well, be guarded and don't trust people. But see, that's why, and if anyone saw the graph, and please look on the Facebook group, I did sort of, I nerded out the other night. I was in my glory nerding out, putting all these circles together. And you might recall, and Manny, actually, if you could bring up that slide, I don't know if it's possible, and I'll talk about it while you look for it. It's the slide of these circles overlapping. And what that represents, my friends, and let's just begin to kind of come together now and bring this all home, is that there is the spirit of justice and boundaries that sits on our left shoulder. And this is actually bringing in Kabbalistic tradition. And then there is this other completely different energy, beautiful energy, that is on our right shoulder. And that is compassion. That is Hesed. On the left shoulder was Gavura. I didn't say that. And then the place of transformation, I'm not going to say the Hebrew word because it'll get too confusing and convoluted. Yes, there it is. Thank you. And noticing that beneath the transformation circle and also underneath justice and compassion is the spiritual container. And so, again, my friends, what this symbolizes is that the more we build the spiritual container, the more that we will have amplified justice and boundaries and wisdom in that, as well as moving over to that compassion circle and realizing when we can really use the magic of compassion and in a metastatic way, I want to say. And then at the top where that transformation lies, that's a beautiful place. And notice in the center of that is accountability. And so this illuminates this work that we are doing. And I pray that maybe as this week goes on and Manny, we can come off the thank you. Imagine that, maybe save it into your phone and imagine it almost in your body. Transformation is going to go here. Justice is here. Compassion sits here. Spiritual container is here over your heart. And when we get all of these things moving, my friend, and the accountability somewhere in here. And when we get all of these things moving, so we become that much more fortified and that much more solidified. And no one's saying that, like what was expressed, again, hearkening back to Evie, that it was easy. No one was saying that this should be easy. We learn more in a discomfort zone. And so there should be some uncomfortability if we're going to change. But however, if we block out and we become so defended, see, that's not good. That's no bueno. Then we are not going to be able to stay open to the changes that are seeking us. And we recall right now in this moment that remembering that God and that love is seeking us. And as we always say, that God is calling us to change the world. I absolutely believe this. This is not a bold claim. There is something that each of you have been doing, are doing, will be doing, that is change making. And if we do not first look within and to see all of those parts of ourselves that hold any aspects of violence and if we are unable, I mean, come on, talk about it. If we are unable to be held accountable and to hear someone, to see somebody, then we are not going to be able to love them, are we? No, we are not meant to live small lives, and we are not going to settle for falling short any longer. No, see, that's what I believe each of you feels be it in this Zoom service or on the Facebook, that there is something that is really beyond any of the words that are being spoken by me. You feel this ineffable belief back to, I don't know, I want to say like when we were kids, when you like, we know what is true and we know what the world is supposed to be. We know how we are supposed to treat one another. We don't even believe we should need trainings on this or workshops. No, that there is a place in the core of us, call it the Imago Dei, that just knows. So we wipe off the debris. We build up the spiritual container. And as I said, I was going to come back to something, that person that I mentioned that was sentenced on Friday. We do not stop doing this magic work, this transformative work, this accountability work, even if the transformation doesn't happen, even if that moment of reckoning, of understanding harm that they have created, even if that moment never happens, it doesn't mean that we stop. It doesn't mean that this work does not matter. No, it means that we keep going. It means that we keep fighting. It means that we keep struggling. It means that we keep challenging ourselves. It means that we keep loving one another. And why? Because this is the revolution of love, and the time is now. The time is right now. And so it is. Blessings, my friends. Blessings.